Well, good afternoon. My name is Rob, and I'm here at Bowerman Field in Hoquiam, Washington, with this beautiful Mustang. This is the A2A civilian Mustang in the livery of a friend of ours from the late 70s who owned this airplane. Jerry Janes from Vancouver, BC, and if you ever use grabber screws, that's where the money for this airplane came from. The name is a reference to his home state of Louisiana. Great guy. He had this airplane, an awesome Harvard B-25, some kind of cabin class twin Cessna, and a Chipmunk for his wife. Very cool. I've flown formation on this airplane, but I never did fly a Mustang back in those days. However, today we're going to go do my training routine, just a refresher training routine. Something that I do just to refamiliarize myself with airplanes that I haven't flown in a while, or learn how to fly new ones. So we're going to do some air work and then back here for some circuits. Weather's good today at Hoquiam. I've just made it clear, 25 degrees, no wind, birds in the background. What's not to like? So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the chocks on the way into the airplane. Zoom up, jump on the wheel, and away we go. Probably should have opened the canopy first. Ow, that hurt. Okay. That was the plan. Anyway, we're going to do a cold and dark start today. Try to get this done in around 45 minutes, start to finish. And let's get started. Bring tracker back to life here. Oops, and center it. And away we go. Okay, I've already dumped the hydraulics. Flaps are down. I've done all the pre-flight. Flight planning's done. We've got 38 gallons of gas on the left side, 30 there. Actually, I think I'm going to top that up just a bit real quick. I'm going to go to 40 gallons a side. We probably wouldn't be landing much over that ever anyway, unless we're just on a little tour. 42, that'll work. Top those up, and let's go. Okay, everything's the way I want it here. We'll just open those guards for use in a minute. I want to get the doors open after start. Or before start, rather. Set 2 trims. Taking the trim out of the rudder because actually we have power steering in these simulators. It's in the real airplane, the rudder you need would make your leg fall asleep. But here we're good. So I'd rather just have it at 0 so I know where it is. Switches are where I want them, all off. I'm going to turn the fuel on, turn the number lock off, and go to the fuselage tank for start. Control locks off, just quickly check control movements, directions, freedom of movement. Come on, get up there. And we have good travel on the rudder. We'll know soon enough if that's in the right direction or not. Hydraulic pressure release is open for start. Okay, battery, generator, and beacons going on. Altimeter set 2992. HSI is lining up with the compass at 334 here. As we turn on the boost pump and open the cooler doors. Voltage is good, 24 degrees. That's about a 4-second prime, should be great. I'm going to get both cooler doors open here, and by that time the fuel pressure will be up in the green range. Give it 4 seconds of prime, and away we go. Okay. Ish. 5 blades and mags. That one doesn't count. And I'm in 6. Mags are on both, and away we go. Good girl. Mixers to run. Oil pressure is coming up. Idling at 600. I'm going to bump that a bit up to, say, 750-ish. Hydraulic pressure release going closed, fuel selectors going to the left tank. I'll explain that in a bit. And now I'm going to run the flaps up one notch at a time. Just watching the hydraulic pressure gauge out of the corner of my eye for proper reaction to the starts and stops. Make sure it goes down and stops as well. And that's good to go. Avionics masters on, radios going on. Not that we need them, but I just like looking at them. Don't need this either, but it has no separate off switch, so it gets turned on regardless. However, I've got it in 4-look mode, so I can just put the track bar on the runway heading for 24, which is also tuned to Hokkien 117.7. That's about it for after start. We just wait for the temperature to come up here a little bit. I want about 50 degrees before we taxi. This is probably just a good time to flip through the agenda. We're going to climb up to 10,000 feet. Steep turns left and right, 360 degrees. The first 180 we'll do at 45 degrees of bank and then go to 60. For the last 180, 200 knots indicated. And then we'll do some approaches to stall. I never stall the airplane. We'll just do approaches to the first indication. We'll try and recover. Sometimes you can't be quick enough and you get secondary stalls and stuff anyways, but that's just when I'm flying sloppy, I think. So a couple of different configurations of stalls, then we'll do some high-speed stalls, practice go around, then come back here for some circuits. Okay, we're getting pretty close to 50 degrees. I'm going to say it's time to taxi. Nice to see all the kids on bikes out and the guy with the camera. Then there's this couple here that I'm not really sure. The girl never looks really happy. She sure stares at the Mustang though, so we may chat one day. So the idea is start on the fuselage tank. I only got about 10 gallons in there. Then after start, I go to the left tank for warm up and taxi. Then I'm going to switch to the right tank for run up and takeoff. I always like to take off on the same tank that I run up on, and that works really well. And then I know all 3 tanks are feeding properly. No wind to turn into, so I'm just going to stop right here for the run up. Right tank selected and 2300 RPM, stick in my lap. Cycle the prop a couple of times. Max drop is 300 RPMs. Mag check. Max 100 RPM drop and 50 RPM difference between the two. Supercharger high mode. You see a 50 RPM drop. Have a quick look. Engine gauges are all in the green. Well, not in the green, but they're all good. Suction is good and the charging system is good. Back to idle. And we'll close the canopy and get ready for the pre-takeoff checklist. Hood hydraulics harness is closed, green and tight. Trim tensions 3 set and set. Temperatures, pressures are good for flight. Fuel's on the right tank, flaps are up for this takeoff. Car bear is ram and cold. Cooler door switch is going back to auto. Mixtures run, props fine, boost pumps on, mags are both. Gyro set and checked at 120. Controls are free and correct. We know that's correct now for sure, at least the rudder. Radios are set for departure. Strobe, pitot heat going on, and the transponder is going to alt reporting mode. No ATC and we're cleared for takeoff. I apologize in advance. I'm trying to move my, now when I think about it, trying to move my head slower rather than snapping it into position like I tend to do sometimes. Hopefully I won't make you sick with that or the flying. So, 5,000 foot runway, rolling takeoff, heading for 55 inches ultimately. There we go, airspeed's alive, tail's coming up. It's 80 knots. A little bit of positive angle of attack at about 100, ease it back and just let it fly off. Gears on the way up. Keep the power set at takeoff until we reach 150 knots, which is our best point. And whoops, and watch out for the birds. Good fun. Bringing it back to 45 inches and 2,700. Alright, all is well. I'm just going to fly out here a few miles and then I'll turn around and head back towards the airport. We'll just do all this air work almost right over top of the airport, just to make it quicker, hopefully. Nice afternoon for flying in Southwest Washington. This airplane is absolutely my favorite sim airplane of all time, I think. It's a great traveling airplane with its modern avionics and decent speed. 260 knots pretty much minimum, and the higher you go, you can push it up over 300, so it's really nice for traveling. The good thing about it is you can get up above into the 30s heading eastbound, take advantage of the jet stream at 60 gallons an hour, and then you can turn around and come back westbound at low altitudes to get out of the jet stream, still at all at 60 gallons an hour, which is pretty cool when you can't do that with a jet. Okay, I'm just going to set the climb power as I turn around to sort of track towards the tail of this needle on the HSI. And engage the autopilot, and then we'll just jump outside, take a look around. Oh, I hate when that happens. Sorry about that, folks. Pitch. Better have a look. One time I did that and somehow managed to shut the fuel off. So that was really exciting a couple of seconds later when I knew I had fuel in the tanks and was wondering what the heck was going on. Alright, might as well just set it up in heading mode here. Doesn't take very long to get to 10,000 feet in the Mustang, that's a good thing. And let's just step outside for a second. Lovely airplane. This repaint was done for me as a favor by Blade Runner 900. And boy, A2A has just done a bang-up job on this Mustang. If you ever wanted to fly a Mustang, this is as close as you're ever going to get without spending the money to get into a real one. Honestly, it terrified me for the first 100 hours probably. Each takeoff being a kind of a gong show, freak show, just really not much fun. The more I've gotten to know her though, it's such a pussy cat. It just has the ability to bite really, really hard if you screw it up, but it's a pussy cat with a great heart. Okay, there we go. 9,000 feet, spin around. I'm just going to do this on autopilot, since I'm there now. we'll just turn around the other. Oh, I should quit doing that. Apologies. Okay, get off autopilot. That will never happen again. No, I shouldn't say that. Too much fun. Okay, we're going to level at 10,000 in a turn. Keep going back to our heading there, and then we'll warm up with some steep turns. Totally cheating. I can do this in the turn, and pull the power back, get all set up at 200 knots all at the same time. However, this sequence pretty much came from all the training that I got at flight safety and simu-flight, stuff like that, and the single pilot training I got for the citation is pretty much the way that I fly this airplane. So, with that said, if the autopilot's available, use it until the instructor, examiner, or whoever tells you not to. Okay, autopilot's coming off. Sorry about the loudness of the sound. And I just got to slow down to 200 knots here, 10,000 feet on that 240 track heading. Seems to me it should take about 31 inches once I get into it. Okay, 200 knots. We'll go to the left first. 10,000 feet, 200 knots, 45 degrees of bank for the first 180 degrees. This is kind of an instrument flight exercise, really, but it's very good at getting you familiar with what control inputs you need, throttle included, to put the airplane where you want it to be and fly it the way you want to. So coming up on the tail of the needle here, I'm going to increase that bank to 60 degrees. Still trying to get 200 knots nailed. There we go, 60 degrees. This half of the turn goes by a lot faster. Get up there, you're not allowed to fly at 9,900 feet. Okay, back the other way. 45 degrees initially. Back to 10,000 and 200 knots. I once had an instructor say to me, I asked you to fly at 7,500 feet. You're flying at 7,535 feet just fine. Do you mind just moving it down 35 feet for me? And I thought that made a lot of sense. Okay, we're coming up on the tail of the needle, and I'm going to go to 60 degrees of bank here. Try and keep the altitude at 10,000 still. Come on. Get up there. See, that was the thing right there. I managed to maintain 9,900 almost perfectly, or 9,920. Okay, I'm coming back. Actually, I'm just going to have a quick look. It's time to change tanks. We'll go to the left side right now. I'm going to come back just to the gear horn, and we'll just do a straight ahead stall. That seems about right. If you come right back to idle, recovery is difficult because sometimes there's a bit of a lag as you push the throttle forward, and if you push it forward too fast, you'll be upside down and dead before you know what happens. So I'm expecting the stall around just over 90 knots right here. I'm trying to go to 10,000 feet again, but okay, we're already, there's 100 knots. Again, first indication, so as soon as I feel a burble or anything, we're going to recover. There we go. And there's that stupid little... Okay, come on. Don't be doing that. Ease the speed back up. Try and maintain the altitude. Okay. Do the same thing with flaps 20. Selected. And set. There we go. Just under 90 knots. Don't. Fine line of getting the nose back on the way up while you ease the power in. Try not to fly it sideways as well. Alright, I'm going to turn back around the other way. I'm going to get the gear down now. We're going to stay at flaps 20. And just do a little bit of slow flight. Based on what we just saw, I'm thinking 95 is a good number for that. Okay, we're going to do the best to maintain 10,000 feet. Whoops, as we slow down, boy, you can feel the torque want to roll the airplane to the left. For sure. But we're now at 90 knots. And we're just flying back and forth in 30 degrees of bank. Almost. There we go. And we can maintain altitude and we can actually fly the airplane like that. It takes 10 degrees nose up to do it. But again, just a good exercise to feel how the airplane feels at this speed. Whoops, there's 80. That's not good. Let's slowly ease that back up. Okay. Anyway, it helps you during final approaching. You can tell what the airplane feels like. You got to know if you ever get in that situation when you're not 3 feet off the ground, you got a problem probably. Okay, next is going to be a practice go around. So I'm going to go from here to flaps 50. We're going to set up a kind of a normal approach descent at around 115 knots. And I'm going to pick a number here. So we're 10.8 right now at 100 knots. Flaps are 50 and the gear's down, leaving it at 2,700 RPM. So 1,500 feet a minute's a pretty normal descent for me on a normal approach, really. And we're going to, whoops, I said 10.5. Make it 10,000, 10.1. We're going to go around from 105 knots, and we're coming back right now pretending that we're just about getting ready to slow down and land, and there's 100 feet. So go around, watch that, get the power coming back up, gear up right away, flaps back to 30 right away, or 20 rather, so up 3 notches. Then we can ease the power up a little bit more. And we didn't really go below 100 knots, and I don't think we went below 10,000 feet, but it was close. Okay, now that we've done that, we're just going to go ahead and do a straight ahead stall in landing configuration, so gear's going back down. Flaps going back to 50. And we'll pull the power back. There's 80 knots. And 70. Okay, I don't need to see any more than that. Gear's on the way back up, and flaps back to 20. Back to 10,000 feet for some steep turns. 200 knots we're going to do steep turns at, with about 35 inches. And the result's pretty dramatic, so it's something really to be aware of. It'll happen probably at around 170 knots depending on how hard I pull. but it will really get your attention if it happened to you in a real airplane. So the whole idea is just to practice, see what it feels like when you're getting to that point, and then don't ever do that again. Alright, what's going on here? The reason we do this at 10,000 feet is it's not unusual to get the Mustang into a spin by accident while you're doing some of this stuff. And it can sometimes take a lot of altitude to recover. So here's one. Let's speed up a little bit here. Now that we're at 10,000 feet, we're looking for 200 knots again. And then I'm going to put it into a steep turn to the left. Pretty much just pull till it stalls. Trying to maintain altitude, because this is where you do it. Okay, there we go, right there. Oh. Did not like that one at all. I maybe pushed that a little bit too far, but I just show you, boy, how fast that can happen and how you don't really want that to happen to you by mistake. Alright, as we level to 10,000 here, going to the right, we'll let her just speed up again to 200 knots. Try and stay level at 10,000 feet, that is. Alright, close enough. It's just to show the effect anyway. So we start to pull. And if you let it go beyond that point, you have the great start of a spin. So, having done all that, let's just kind of leave the power back and we'll go back and do a few circuits. First one's just going to be a normal landing. If it, yeah, that's it. I rarely do circuits because I'm normally doing some kind of fighter pitch or something like that, but it's good to practice circuits because when you end up with ATC at a smaller airport or even a larger airport, you probably have to fly downwinds and bases and all those kind of things. What you don't want to do with the Mustang is be flying a 15-mile straight-in final on the glide slope, unless, of course, you're actually fully IFR, in which case that's what you do. When you're VFR, you fly normal little airplane circuits, 1,000 feet, close to the runway, and fairly steep approach. The reasoning mostly being, or at least partly, that boy, it's a lot easier to see over the nose of this Mustang when your approach is quite steep. Kind of wondering how this is going to work here. I think we're just going to go, we'll just do a fighter pitch for the first landing, and then we'll do some circuits. So the first landing is just going to be a normal landing, touch and go, but we will let the tail come down. So my normal approach, even in the real world, you have to do stuff like this with the Mustang. At least back in the day, they sure did. And all the tower controllers knew what your request for a pitch was. So here we go. Pitch right at the button of the runway to the left, and up we go. We'll burn off some speed in the climb and the pitch itself. We're going to flaps 20 right now, 140 knots, gears coming down, props coming up, and the throttle's coming up. We should be able to keep this turn pretty much going. 110 knots there right now. Yeah, that's perfect. Flaps 30 and 40. Prop to full fine, flap 50. Carrying a little bit of power, I don't want to go below that 110 till I'm finished the turn. And here we go. honey? Oh, sorry about that. I was talking to the airplane. And you too. Alright, let's go. Flaps are back up. And the tail's coming back up. Away we go. Okay, we'll go do 1,000-foot circuits here. I find myself a lot of times banking more than 30 degrees in this airplane because it's so easy to get so far away from the runway. Come downwind. I like to keep it close. And I know I said 1,000 feet. I'm working on that right now. Alright. This landing will be the wheel landing, touch and go with the tail up. Moving at flaps 20. I'll start the bank, beam the button. Let's do that. Power back a little bit more and just maintain this altitude as we slow down to get the gear down. Gears on the way, throttle's coming up, and we're starting down. Flaps to 30. $40. Of course, we're going to be a little bit faster on this one and carry some power. Not put the tail on the ground, but I won't keep it high enough that we can see the runway all the way around. So there we go, flaps 50, just over the button. We won't be able to see the runway over the nose, but the tail won't end up on the ground. So here we go. Okay, power up a bit, flaps all the way up. There we go for round 3. Okay, this time we're going to set up for a short field stop and go. I got a lot of Orbex airports that are short runways, grass, most of them, and I always wanted to go there with the Mustang. I always used to think they were out of reach, but as soon as I started practicing short field landings and takeoffs, I realized that, yeah, you can get the Mustang in out of 2,000 feet if you do it properly. I haven't tried much less than that. Well, I did 1,800, but anyway, it actually works. This is such a versatile airplane with so much utility. It's kind of like the Harvard that way. I felt back in the day, nobody ever really knew how versatile those airplanes were, like how they can get in and out of short field grass strips and stuff like that. This one's the same. We just have to know how to talk to her nicely. Okay, I got flaps 20 again, the gears coming down. This is going to be a steep approach with the power way back, because the only way you can really get into a short field is to do it very steeply. That way you can burn off the energy in the flare. If you try to do it too flat, two things happen. You'll be too fast to stop at the end, and you won't be able to see for the last mile and a half because the nose will be way too high. So the idea here is steep. Now it's probably time to stop talking and just do it. Flaps are going to 50, gears green, and the prop's full fine. The idea is touchdown on the button, be stopped at the 1,000-foot markers. Dang, missed. And it was harder than I wanted that to be too. Okay, well, close enough. I mean, it's all you get today. Alright, I went flaps 20 for the takeoff. Now I'm going to bring the tail up on this takeoff even less than I normally would, so I have a deeper angle of attack. And the airplane's going to fly off the ground as soon as it's ready. You just got to watch the torque roll. Power's coming up to about 45 inches here. Then we're going to 61 as soon as I let go of the brakes. Ish. Okay, stop the tail right there from coming up and just hold on till it flies off. What a sweetheart. Here's on the way up. Flaps back to 10. Power's coming back to 55 inches. Okay. Flaps going up. Okay, this one is going to be a go-around. Landing configuration go-around from 100 feet. See if we can prove that what we practiced works. This Mustang reminds me very much of the little jets that I used to fly back in another lifetime. At slow speeds, you kind of wonder, it seems a bit sluggish, but once you get up ahead of steam, it's loving life. Okay, do it all at once here. I was a little bit fast, but that's all good. Flaps to 20, still coming back to gear speed in the turn. Again, we're going to get all set up for final approach. And flaps down, go around. Hush up, you. Gears on the way, and flaps 30. Just bumping the prop up now and the throttle. Flaps 50. Gears screen, full 5. We want to be back in the throttle, so it's a relatively steep descent like the way I normally fly. So this is good. Geez, that would have been probably a better short field landing approach right there. Anyways, 100 feet go around. We're traffic on the runway, whatever the reason is. So nose up, gear up, bump the power up, flaps 20 right away. Good climb going, flaps 10. Okay. Recovery went okay. Flaps up, and the power's coming back. Well, at least. That's a little bit too far. Well, it doesn't really matter now. Holy cow. Calm down. Alright, last landing is just going to be a flapless full stop. So, we know that we had a flaps up stall speed. Well, that was with the gear up, though. At around just under 90 knots. Or just under 895 knots, I mean. So, if we look at, say, take 90 knots, normal approach speed on larger airplanes and, well, transport category is 1.3 times your stall speed in the landing configuration. So in this case, our landing configuration is going to be no flaps and gear down. So we're expecting a stall around 90 knots, so 120 seems like a good number to use for an approach speed. Had to come back to the gear horn just to get slowed down enough to get the gear down because I was babbling and not really paying attention. Okay, power's coming up. We'll just keep that 120 right there. For an initial speed, of course. And then we'll just, I'll just make it a basic 3-point landing. Like all my landings, more or less. Not truly 3-point, but tail way low. Again, if I flew more, talked less, the speed control would have been better right there. Okay. No muss, no fuss. Just gonna let her roll to the next taxiway. Okay, clear the runway. Boost pump's already off. Strobe's going off. Pitot heat's going off. Cooler door's going to get fully opened on the way back. And transponder's in ground mode all by itself. GTN is a really handy piece of equipment for cross-country flying. The only issue I had with it in the first place is that the map view up in front of your face is so mesmerizing you almost kind of don't scan anywhere else. And I had an issue with leaving the map view open on takeoff because it starts with a nice big close-up zoomed map so you can see where you're taxiing, and if you don't shut it off on the takeoff roll right in front of your face, I don't know, it's probably when you hit about 50 knots it all of a sudden goes blam to the 50-mile range, and I found it fairly distracting. Nice to see all the kids out. Guy with the camera still taking pictures. I just parked this way. This is Mustang parking. We don't park by those lines over there. Alright, going back to 1500 RPM just to let the engine settle down, temperatures and pressures stabilize while I shut off the radios and any other stray switches I may have missed. Don't see any. Extra cutoff, throttle goes to 700, sorry, it goes to wide open at 700 RPM. Try not to break the emergency power wire, which I normally do, but whatever. Okay, mags off, and beacons off, generators off, batteries off. We're good to go. I'm not going to shut it down completely, dump the hydraulics and all that stuff, because I probably will go flying again in a bit. Thanks a lot for joining me. I hope you had fun. I know I did. And now it's off to Lannis for a burger. Have a great day, all y'all.